Welcome to the class, The Importance of Literature for Human Formation in Newman Academy. So why literature? Literature is neither practical nor useful. For the great majority of writers, it's not even a lucrative career, and very few authors achieve fame from their writing. Even the best literature cannot teach you how to design a bridge, fix a car, build a skyscraper, solve a math problem, come up with new medicines or inventions. So if reading good books doesn't make you more efficient or more practical, how can it be important for our formation? Now, I was an English major in college, studying literature and writing, and all the time people would ask me, so what are you going to do with that major? And my dad, with the best of intentions, every summer would strongly encourage me to change my major. He'd say, honey, you're never going to be able to make a living with that degree. And I, a bit defensively, would answer, I'm not studying English because I want to do something with my degree. I'm studying English because I want to be more human. I want to live a fully human life. So looking back, I recognize that what my dad had to say was true. Literature isn't useful or practical, and it doesn't directly pursue any quantitative goal. My dad was right. But so was I. If you take away my defensiveness from my response, what I had to say was true. Studying literature makes one more fully human, even more than the study of more practical fields, like engineering or science, or horticulture, or any of those other practical studies. And literature's capacity to form us, to make us more fully human, lies precisely in its lack of utility. Or to put it positively, good literature makes us more fully human because it doesn't reduce us to means to an end, or producers of content or goods. But it connects us to the heart of what it means to be human. Literature and the study of good literature is a good in itself. And when we study literature, when we read the great books, we are put in touch with the mystery that is both in and beyond our experience. St. John Henry Newman puts it this way. He says, if by means of words the secrets of the heart are brought to light, pain of soul is relieved, hidden grief is carried off, sympathy conveyed, counsel imparted, experience recorded, and wisdom perpetuated. If by great authors the many are drawn up into unity, national character is fixed, a people speaks, the past and the future, the East and the West are brought into communication with each other. If such men are, in a word, the spokesmen and prophets of the human family, it will not answer to make light of literature or to neglect its study. Rather, we may be sure that, in proportion as we master it in whatever language and imbibe its spirit, we shall ourselves become, in our own measure, the ministers of like benefits to others, be they many or few, be they in the obscurer or the more distinguished walks of life, who are united to us by social ties and are within the sphere of our personal influence. For Newman, literature matters because it expresses what is both personal and universal, allowing us to enter into communication and even with in communion with people of different times and places, different thought, different cultures, different experiences. And as we read great literature, we ourselves become more capable of positively influencing others. That's what this course is about, the importance of good literature for our human formation, the special power that reading good books has to make us more fully human. So in this first video, we want to talk about how literature is both universal and personal, and how this characteristic of capturing the essence of human experience in all its richness and diversity makes us more fully human. So let's begin with some definitions, some terms we need to understand as we move forward. What is literature? What makes great literature great? For these definitions, I want to look at some authors to give me some help. So first, what is literature? Newman insists that literature is a particular kind of writing, different from technical or scientific writing, different from philosophy, theology, or spirituality. He says, literature expresses not objective truth, as it is called, but subjective, not things, but thoughts. In another place, he writes, by letters or literature is meant the expression of thought and language, where by thought I mean the ideas, feelings, views, reasonings, and other operations of the human mind. And the art of letters is a method by which a speaker or writer brings out in words worthy of his subject and sufficient for his audience or readers the thoughts which impress him. Literature, then, is of a personal character. It consists in the enunciations and teachings of those who have a right to speak as representatives of their brethren, and in whose words their brethren find an interpretation of their own sentiments, a record of their own experience, and a suggestion for their own judgments. By this definition, we see that literature encompasses not only one's ideas, but also one's feelings and views, and that it becomes somehow representative for many other people. Dana Gioia, who's a Catholic writer and was a poet laureate of California, further clarifies Newman's definition by speaking of imaginative writing. By that he means fiction, poetry, drama, and memoir. So literature can be defined as imaginative writing that conveys the author's, and perhaps the various characters', subjective apprehension of reality in a way that is both personal and that is somehow also representative or universal. And what makes great literature great? Again, we turn to Newman first. A great author, gentlemen, he says, is not one who merely has a copia verborum, whether in prose or verse, and can, as it were, turn on at his will any number of splendid phrases and swelling sentences. But he is one who has something to say and knows how to say it. And later Newman explains in more detail. He writes passionately because he feels keenly, forcibly because he conceives vividly. He sees too clearly to be vague. He is too serious to be otiose. He can analyze his subject, and therefore he is rich. He embraces it as a whole and in its parts, and therefore he is consistent. He has a firm hold of it, and therefore he is luminous. When his imagination wells up, it overflows in ornament. When his heart is touched, it thrills along with his verse. He always has the right word for the right idea, and never a word too much. If he is brief, it is because few words suffice. When he is lavish of them, still each word has its mark, and aids, not embarrasses, the vigorous march of his elocution. He expresses what all feel, but all cannot say. And his sayings pass into proverbs among his people, and his phrases become household words and idioms of their daily speech, which is tessellated with the rich fragments of his language, as we see in foreign lands of marbles of Roman grandeur worked into the walls and pavements of modern palaces. So what he's saying is that the great authors know how to match their language and style to their subject, and the process of their writing is deeply personal. Their works are populated by believable characters, and their invented worlds are believable and consistent worlds. Their works are deeply personal, reflections of the thoughts and experiences of their hearts. And at the same time, their works are somehow universal, capable of expressing the human experience in such a way that people of different times and places, of different cultures and ages, can experience and discover themselves in the stories, can learn what it means to be human. Think about some of the great authors, whether you've read them or not. Think of Shakespeare or Virgil, Sophocles, Borges, Tolkien, Cervantes, Dante, Dostoevsky. Even though their works are deeply personal, they reach far beyond their own experience, their own age, their own culture, and even in translation, generations later, they are capable of touching the human heart. I think it's precisely because their works are deeply personal that they are also universal. When you read them, you somehow find yourself in the story. You inhabit, for example, Middle-earth when you read The Lord of the Rings, and you know who and what and how the hobbits are, and who and what and how elves are. You bear the burden of the ring with Frodo, or you suffer alongside him like Sam, wanting to do anything to help your friend. You mourn with the whole company when Gandalf falls into the abyss with the Balrog. That is, you enter deeply into the story, experience the story, and thus enter more deeply into your own experience of life and into the universal human experience. Now think for a moment of cheap literature, the kind of books you used to be able to buy at the grocery store checkout line. They might be fun reads, But after reading a couple of them, you feel a little like you feel after eating just junk food. You want something substantial and real, something that can really satisfy your mind and your heart. When I was studying literature in college, on spring break, I would buy one of those novels and read it. But even back then, I just called it brain candy. It required nothing from me. No real engagement of my mind, little engagement of my heart. Unlike the great works that demanded, in a really good way, demanded my heart and my mind, my attention. They demanded a lot of me. So what the good and the great works of literature do, each in its own way, is to express the personal experience of the author or of the characters, even of the reader, in such a way that we as readers enter into deep empathy with the experiences we are reading about. Enter into those experiences as if they were our own. And as we enter into the experience of different characters and different authors, our own world grows. Our own experience grows. I don't know about you, but ever since I was a little kid, when I read any good book, I've entered into that world. I've been through the wardrobe with Lucy and the other children. I have stooped to enter the hobbit dwellings in the Shire. I have lived in Faulkner's fictional county in Mississippi long enough to know the characters personally and understand how their stories intertwine. I have traveled the long journey through hell and then up the mountain of purgatory to get to paradise with Dante. And I have lived on the prairie with the Ingalls family in my calico dress and ribbon braids. And doing so has shaped me, has formed me, has made me, I believe, more fully human. And that's what happens when we read good literature. We become more fully human. We have more human experiences. We understand what it is like to be human, the different struggles and triumphs of different people in different times and places, and yet always facing the same reality of life in a fallen world, struggling to become who we were created to be. I don't believe reading good literature is going to make you a more efficient engineer, a better barista, a more effective mathematician, but it is going to make you a better human being, a more effective communicator, a person more capable of understanding the inner workings of the human heart, and thus of connecting with more people in more places and more times in a more fully human way. Becoming, as Newman says, capable of influencing others in the same way we've been influenced by this literature. Here's some questions to share in your circle. 1, what stood out from this video? 2, what do you think is the purpose of literature, and what do you love about literature? 3, in what ways do you think that reading good literature has helped you become more fully human? Why? And 4, how has some work of literature spoken to your own experience or drawn you into another's experience?